Hello, Steve White, Trickboy89 for Steve Outs 89. Well, I just watched episode 8 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, the Elysian Kingdom. This episode was very challenging. I hate fantasy. I've managed to watch Lord of the Rings once in the cinema, and I think once on DVD, and I watched The Hobbit, the first one, once, and I didn't watch the others. I really don't like fantasy. I love science fiction. I love Star Trek. I love future science fiction. I like the idea of fantasy going back to like old kingdoms and Robin Hood sort of era and that. I can't. And I saw some images for this and I thought, oh, please let this just be a little moment in the episode, not the whole episode. And then we get into the episode, and 18 minutes in, I just was like, oh God, I can't watch this. It's so... Now, the production design was beautiful. Instead of actually creating a total fantasy land, they redressed the ship and made the fantasy taking part on the ship. And the characters apparently all are part of this, but they don't actually know that they're part of it. They're not conscious of what they're doing, except for Hemmer, because of his telepathic abilities, although I don't see why Spock didn't have a similar resistance to it. And Dr. Mbenga, which I'm guessing was because he had a little accident with a chemical just before this happened, or maybe it's because he was the father of what's her name, Rakia. So yeah, the first part of the episode, I was just so cringe to watch, and then when it started to become obvious it was about his daughter, and it was about that relationship, the focus went to that, and the setting didn't really matter so much. The costumes, all that, I mean, they're all beautiful to look at, but just overall, the fantasy element of it sort of became very secondary. Basically, what happened in the episode was they went to a nebula, the Genesium Nebula. Or maybe it's Elysian, because that's the kingdom. Maybe I misheard that. And they're looking at it, and they're just sort of... Captain Pike is pondering, it's just nice to just explore and look at stuff and do science instead of being fighting and battling. And I'm like, well, that's a nice moment. It's a nice little scene. Then as soon as they go to leave the nebula, the Enterprise won't move. They don't know why. Ortegas is injured when they try to go to thrusters, and the ship doesn't. And then the Doctor goes to the bridge, and all of a sudden he walks into this mock-up sort of fantasy land. And eventually works out that he's conscious of what's happening. No one else is. The dopamine levels are all high. He doesn't know what's happening. Eventually, we work out that there is an entity within the nebula. It is a Boltzmann brain, which is like a telepathic and sort of random sort of spontaneous consciousness within this nebula. And it basically scanned the ship, and it found Rakia and felt her loneliness, and it felt lonely as an entity, and it basically transported her out of the pattern buffer where she's been for a year. I didn't know how long he'd been trying to save her life by keeping her in the pattern buffer and continuing research. But eventually realises she's missing. And the whole fantasy, by the way, is of course a storybook that he's reading to her. And what we realise is it's not his mind that they're drawing the fantasy from; it's her mind. And basically, the entity is basically giving her a ship to play on and a world to play in. And she seems to be cured in this reality, but it seems to be only because she seems to be... Actually, that doesn't make sense to me. It's like she's not of her body anymore, so it doesn't matter that her body's sick. It's like it transported out her consciousness, but she's physically there. So I'm not sure if she's really there or if she's an illusion. But eventually, he sort of realizes, I can't keep her in the pattern buffer forever. I can't cure her. I have to let her go. This way, she's not actually dying. She is changing into another form of life, and that she will live on forever in this nebula with this other entity, and enjoy that life. So he lets her go, which was very emotional. I found Babs' acting is really good. He really pulled the episode out of oblivion. And then a minute or so she comes back as an adult, because she's lived all this time in just a few seconds, and tells him basically I'm happy. She comes back to just let him know, I'm okay, please go on. And he does. Everything goes back to normal. All the crew basically has a headache and doesn't know what's happened for the last 5 hours. And eventually he tells number one the story of what happened. So it was very emotional and very well done at the end. But the first 20 minutes or so, when they're just plottering around in these costumes and playing these silly characters, and I'm sure the actors have fun with it, and the costumes are brilliant. The costumer would have had a lot of fun doing it, but it was tedious to watch. My probably least favourite episode of Star Trek ever would probably be Star Trek Enterprise Civilization, because it's like a fantasy episode where they go down to this planet where it's very much medieval sort of style, and I really cringe every time I marathon through the series and watch that episode. I often want to go through it and skip it, but I don't. I do watch it. But I was expecting that sort of episode with this, and it was a bit more than that, but it took a while to get to what the story was really about. But once it did, it had a real emotional pull to it, and it did, like I said, pull it out of the jaws of oblivion of a bad episode. But overall, I did end up enjoying it. Hammer was fairly good, the character, because he was the only other one who was aware of what was happening, and he was consciously playing the part of the wizard and using abracadabra and stuff like that, and it was okay. But the first part was hellish. I did a little reaction video that I was going to put up, but I think it wouldn't represent how I feel about the overall whole episode, so I probably won't do that. But it was good. I mean, I've found the season to be sort of hit and miss so far. We're up to 8 episodes. We're nearly done for the whole season. Every episode was kind of good, and I enjoyed it to a certain level, but there were some flaws of each one. And I didn't enjoy the Orville, and the first couple episodes of the Orville. And today I was like, well, just watch the Orville first, get it out of the way, because you're enjoying. And I realised I'm actually enjoying Strange New Worlds more, even though it's got flaws, because I really was not engaging with the Orville. But then the Orville was brilliant this week, and I was thinking I'm going to do a review, because I'm thinking about other things halfway through this episode, because it really wasn't connecting with me. And I thought, I'm just going to have to trash it this episode, this review. But then the episode, revealed what it was really about, and it was about him letting go of his daughter, which surprised me, because I really thought, because he gave up science, he abandoned everything, and he did let it go to a different form of life and another life. But I really thought he would have held on to it and cured it. I thought that would have been something that he would have continued on with the series. It seems so strange to just have it be almost a season arc. It didn't even last the whole season. But that's where we are. Overall, the episode was good, but parts of it were so cringe just on their own and so difficult for me to watch. But if you love fantasy, this may be one of your favourite episodes, but I hate fantasy, so I knew it was coming. I was like, I don't want to watch this one. It's just going to be some silly, flippant little thing where they're in costumes for the episode, and then at the end they sort of, find out what caused it all and snap out of it. It would have been horrible, but they made it about something, and it did seem to serve a purpose overall. So I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. I did enjoy it in the end. I did think Babs' performance was brilliant, and it had some emotional resonance, and it was good, but there were, so I struggled, but at the end I was rewarded with enjoying the rest of it. But I'm going to go. Thanks. Bye.